Hey yo, Chris here, and thanks for tuning into the Delta. And welcome to the Power Rankings Voodoo Wheel episode, where I put together my power rankings that are 100% right, no contention. No one else knows anything more than me. And we find out who's out, who's in, who's hot, who's not, that type of stuff. So, before we get started, like and subscribe to the channel. It helps out a lot. We're doing a very good job growing at a steady pace, and there's not enough words to thank you enough and show my appreciation. So if you could just hit that subscribe button and maybe we can grow a little bit more, that would be great. But now let's get into our power rankings video. Let's first discuss Alpine, all right? I put them in the power rankings there for last race, and they put up a big old stinker. Silverstone, Ocon finished P16. Gasly didn't even get out of the formation lap, and Pierre Gasly was the only one to score points there the race prior in Austria. Consecutive performances like that when you are on the back half of the power rankings is just not going to keep you there for long. So Alpine is out. Now, who takes their spot? Sixth place, I have Aston Martin. They're fifth in the standings with 68 total points. They put a solid performance together in Silverstone, where Stroll placed seventh, Alonso P8, and with a very solid point increase ahead of RB, who only scored 1 point in Silverstone. That is a legitimate way to get back into my power rankings. I still don't think they're the world's greatest team or anything like that, obviously, because they're 6 out of 10. But, you know, given the previous races where they were just dead in the water, it seemed, they put together a very good strategy, a very good race, and with the combination of their current standings in the Constructors, it just makes sense to put them back into the power rankings. It's not necessarily safe, you know, they could put a really bad race together here in Hungary, and sure enough, another team like RB can surpass them, or maybe even even Alpine can come back. So, as of now, Aston Martin in 6th place. They have some work to do if they want to keep their spot, but if it's based anything off of Silverstone, I think they will do just fine there in Hungary and probably finish about the same. At number 5, I have Haas. They're 7th in the standings, but they have 27 points, and they're only 4 points behind RB. Nico Hülkenberg placed 6th in Silverstone and Austria, clearly outperforming the car. But I mean, if you're able to do that with your car that isn't supposed to be there, then even if you get knocked back a few pegs, Nico Hülkenberg and that car are in place to get points consistently looking forward. K-Mag just scored 4 points in Austria, but they're 4 important points when you're talking about the bottom half of the Constructors' standings. And he placed 12th in the British Grand Prix, which you'd like to see him get at least 10th, but it is still a Haas, so you got to take what you can get. Now, their recent performances, though, are surprising. I think all of us. I don't think anyone sat here and said, oh, you know, Haas is going to start competing for that 6th place spot in the Constructors, you know, especially at the beginning of the season when we were just assuming that they were just not going to show up this season at all. But they are only basically a few races behind Aston Martin. And if they continue on this path, not only will they pass RB, there might even be a situation where they can overtake Aston Martin for the 5th place spot in the Constructors' standings. And because of that, Haas is in 5th in the power rankings. Moving on to number 4, we have Ferrari. Don't know how to do this. Ferrari gets one more race. And the only reason they hold 4th spot is because they hold 2nd place in the Constructor standings with 302 points. But at some point, you have to call a spade a spade. And these last 3 performances, which Charles Leclerc failed to score points in 2 of the races, aren't going to keep your spot safe in my power rankings. For example, Charles Leclerc has only scored 10 points since Canada. That dog does not hunt if you're Ferrari. Carlos Sainz is the only reason Ferrari hasn't lost the second place spot in the Constructors, and Sainz is barely driving good himself. Like, he's just getting by in the car he has. He can't be too aggressive because the margins are so tight in the Constructors for them at this point that I almost feel like when Charles Leclerc is having that bad race, Ferrari's just instructing Carlos to be like, just take what you can get. Well, I think I can catch. No, it doesn't matter if you can catch him. Just take what you can get. Don't bend in the wall. We need whatever points we can get. And again, if you're a Ferrari team, you can't do that. You're supposed to be a top tier team, and you're not performing as such. As I anticipate a mediocre performance by Ferrari this weekend there in Hungary, I predict that McLaren will overtake them in the Constructors standings. They're only a few points behind. It only takes very minimal placement above the Ferrari drivers to take their spot there in the Constructors. And if Ferrari fails to produce any solid points this weekend, I will not hesitate to slip Haas right past them if Haas has another stellar performance. Number 3, Mercedes. Mercedes is on fire right now, sitting in 4th place in the Constructor standings with 221 points. Since Monaco, they have 135 total points. For comparison, McLaren has 128, Red Bull only 96, and Ferrari a whopping 84. Mercedes is blowing the top tier competition out of the water essentially over these last 5 races. If McLaren puts together some poor races here in the near future, there may be a legitimate path of Mercedes catching up to the 3rd place spot and jumping them. And with the 2nd place spot so close, we all know Ferrari's going to bungle it up, and there might even be an opening for a 2nd place spot for Mercedes. Mighty strides have been taken by Mercedes, and with the upgrades they have coming this weekend, they might be the scariest team on the track. Number 2, McLaren. McLaren has 295 points and hold a 3rd place spot in the Constructor standings. As of now, until we can see what Mercedes looks like this weekend, McLaren has the fastest car, or at least the only other car that has the juice to keep up with Red Bull. I expect them to jump Ferrari, as I said earlier, in the standings in the Hungarian GP, so they are in no danger of really losing this 2nd place spot in the power rankings. However, it does seem that they have been sipping on some of that Ferrari juice. Lando could have won Canada, but poor strategy took that away, and you can say, okay, we'll blame it on the crazy conditions. Lando could have won Spain, but he had a poor launch at the start of the race. But hey, shit happens, right? Lando could have won Austria, but he gets tangled up with Verstappen at turn 3. Okay, that's hard racing. No risk, no reward. Lando or Piastri could have won in Silverstone, but due to poor strategy in the pit lanes and bad tire choice by Lando Norris, that was taken away from them too. My point being is McLaren isn't the number 1 team in Formula 1 because they're getting in their own way for one reason or another. And with Mercedes breathing down their neck at a car performance level, maybe McLaren is at risk at losing their 2nd spot in the power rankings. They need to put in a solid performance by the team and drivers here this weekend in Hungary, and they'll be fine. But if they continue this habit of floundering away wins and podiums and not getting the max amount of points that they know that they're capable of getting, they may be at risk of dropping a spot in the power rankings. Now we move on to my number 1 team in the power rankings, and I got Red Bull, obviously. Despite having some less than stellar performances there recently, Red Bull still has a commanding lead with 373 points. Numbers are hard. 71 points ahead of Ferrari. They just were too good at the beginning of the season. It's hard to see like this path where they're at risk of losing the Constructors. And likewise, Max Verstappen has an 84-point lead on Lando Norris in the driver standings. And there's really only 2 problems Red Bull currently faces. The obvious one is Sergio Perez is not pulling his weight. while his teammate Max still finding ways to get wins and podiums. And then the other problem is the rest of the field, namely McLaren and Mercedes, are right there with them. We may be approaching the point where, despite their commanding leads in the championships, they may not be the best team by the end of the season. And that could affect their placement here in the power rankings looking into the future. But until we see that happen, they still are performing at an exceptional level, and Max Verstappen is producing better than all the other drivers currently. Now, it is time for this bad boy. It rolled Ferrari there for Silverstone, and well, we saw what happened to Charles Leclerc. And it decided to leave Alpine by himself. Like, I spun on Alpine, I think, Austria? And it left Alpine alone. Not a problem. But when it spins Ferrari, it shits all over them. And all over Ferrari. This voodoo wheel hates Ferrari, and I almost regret getting the damn thing. But with that being said, we will always spin the voodoo wheel and see what happens. Since it landed on Ferrari, we'll start at Ferrari. I'll give it a good old-fashioned American spin and see where it lands and who is getting struck at the Hungarian Grand Prix. Oh, it almost did it. It almost did it. Oh my God. It almost landed on Ferrari, but instead it landed on Winner's Woes. Okay, what Winner's Woes is, my friends? The winner of the last race. Only one person gets voodoo. It's not the team. It's not another driver. It's not all three of the podiums. It's the winner. Lewis Hamilton won Silverstone. Will voodoo strike down on Lewis Hamilton? And, I mean, what can voodoo be? Will he just not perform well? DNF? Not make it out of Q2? Lots of questions. Upgrades coming. Could they be downgrades? Find out in the Hungarian Grand Prix and let me know what you think in the comments the voodoo might do to Lewis Hamilton. But until next time, take care, stay safe, and have fun out there. Bye, everybody.